All right. So, we've got this pretty wild headline. The New World Order and the Four Kings of Daniel. Is the prophecy being fulfilled?
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, right away, it kind of grabs you.
It does.
Ancient prophecies tied to what's going on in the world right now. It's definitely intriguing.
Yeah.
You know, you were curious about this video and what it makes of these really old texts. And they actually connect to what we're seeing today. And that's exactly what we're going to deep dive into, you know?
Absolutely.
So we're going to go through this whole analysis of the book of Daniel.
Yeah.
Try to really grasp those visions of empires and see how they could possibly relate to our world.
Right.
All without, you know, getting bogged down in all those tiny details.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating book. The book of Daniel has been captivating people's imaginations for centuries.
Oh, yeah.
Filled with these really powerful symbolic visions that speak to this vast sweep of history. You know, the rise and fall of empires. And for this discussion, the key vision that we're really going to focus on is in Daniel chapter 7. It's where these four extraordinary beasts emerge from the sea, each one a symbol representing a significant kingdom.
Wow.
And the central question that we're going to explore in this deep dive, guided by this YouTube video's perspective, is whether these kingdoms are still relevant today.
Right.
Perhaps even in how power is structured now, and if their presence suggests that we're actually living in a time of some serious prophetic significance.
Okay, so the source for this take on Daniel is a YouTube channel called Illustrated Prayer.
Okay.
They've created this really detailed analysis, and we're zeroing in on their interpretation of these four beasts.
Okay, sounds good.
The first one they discuss is a lion with eagle's wings.
Right.
Now, even if someone's never cracked open the Bible, those are some pretty vivid images, you got to admit.
They are, and according to this video's interpretation, this initial beast, the lion with eagle's wings directly represents the Babylonian Empire.
Okay.
If you think back to ancient history, Babylon was this massive power.
It's huge.
And the lion was a common symbol for them. It was often seen in their art and architecture.
Makes sense.
The eagle's wings, as this analysis suggests, symbolize the speed and the vast reach of their expansion, particularly under King Nebuchadnezzar.
Now, here's something that really jumps out at me. It's this detail about the plucking of the wings and the lion being made to stand upright like a human.
Yeah.
Even given a human heart, it's a strange image.
It is!
What does the video make of that?
Yeah, that's a key part of the interpretation.
Okay.
The video connects this directly to the story in Daniel chapter 4, where King Nebuchadnezzar in his pride is humbled by God.
Wow.
He loses his sanity and lives like a wild animal until he finally recognizes God's authority.
It's a pretty stark warning, isn't it?
It is a powerful illustration of the dangers of human arrogance.
Yeah.
But this analysis goes further, proposing that while the ancient Babylonian Empire as a physical entity disappeared, its essence continues.
So let's talk about this idea of essence. What does a modern-day Babylon look like?
Right. The transcript emphasizes that in the Bible, particularly in the book of Revelation, Babylon becomes this symbolic term for a world system that opposes God.
Okay.
And the idea is that we can actually observe these Babylonian traits being manifested in different ways today.
So what are some examples of these Babylonian traits in the modern world?
Well, the transcript highlights the emphasis on human achievement, material wealth, and the drive for absolute control. You know, this idea that many of our large institutions and governments today operate as if they are the ultimate authority, creating their own rules without any reference to higher principles.
Yeah, that definitely makes you think about a lot of global trends right now.
That does.
You know, the whole push toward more interconnected systems, maybe even whispers of a global governance that's out there. And then you've got this rising secularism, a move away from those more traditional Christian beliefs.
Exactly. And this analysis draws a connection back to Daniel chapter 2 and Nebuchadnezzar's dream of a statue.
Okay.
Remember where Babylon is represented by the golden head? And the idea here is that even though that empire itself is long gone, its foundational principles and its spirit haven't entirely vanished.
So the eagle's wings in our world today would be...
Well, in this interpretation, that could symbolize the pervasive influence of major powers through things like economics, the media, and technology.
Right. It's all about how to exert this broad influence and control across different nations.
Exactly.
So it's less about a literal revival of the Babylonian Empire and more about similar underlying values and approaches that are manifesting in new ways in our world today.
Precisely.
Now, the video also talks about Babylonian idolatry.
Yeah.
So how does that translate into a modern context?
Yeah, well, this interpretation suggests that modern idolatry manifests as extreme materialism.
Yeah.
where the pursuit of wealth and possessions becomes this all-consuming goal, and also this exaltation of humanity, where we place ourselves at the center of everything rather than acknowledging any divine authority.
Okay, so that's self-importance, the idea that humanity has it all figured out and is in control. That same attitude that got Nebuchadnezzar into trouble.
Right. The video even refers back to Nebuchadnezzar's boast in Daniel 4.3, is not this great Babylon which I have built.
It's like that same spirit is alive and well.
Exactly.
Okay, so the main takeaway regarding this first beast, the lion with eagle's wings, is that the world today, in many ways, embodies that spirit of Babylon.
Yeah.
And this could be a sign that we're moving towards a pretty significant prophetic period.
That's what the analysis suggests.
And the video even mentions the eventual downfall of this symbolic Babylon, as it's described in the book of Revelation.
Right.
Okay, so we've tackled the lion. Now let's move on to that second beast.
Yeah.
The transcript describes it as a fierce bear. Doesn't sound too friendly.
Not at all. And this video identifies the bear as representing that brutal and powerful empire that came after Babylon, historically the Medo-Persian Empire.
The symbolism here is very striking. A bear signifying relentless power, brute force. It's raised up on one side holding 3 ribs in its mouth, and there's this command to devour much flesh.
It's a very vivid image.
It is, and that detail about the bear being raised up on one side, that's always seemed a bit strange to me.
Yeah.
What significance does the video attach to that?
Well, while interpretations can vary, the video suggests that the bear being raised up on one side reflects that historical reality of the Medo-Persian Empire.
Okay.
Where initially the Medes and the Persians were allies, but eventually Persia became the dominant power.
Ah, I see. So it's about that shift in power dynamics.
Exactly. And the 3 ribs in its mouth are often interpreted historically as representing the 3 major kingdoms conquered by the Medo-Persian Empire.
Which were?
Lydia, Babylon, and Egypt.
Wow, so this beast had quite an appetite.
It did, and the command to devour much flesh very clearly points to that period of aggressive expansion.
Okay, so how does this image of a brutal expansionist empire connect to our world today?
Well, the transcript draws a parallel between that centralized power and control of the Medo-Persian Empire and modern governments that exhibit similar characteristics, where power is very concentrated and populations are governed without a whole lot of opposition.
Right, so less about conquering new territories and more about controlling what they already have.
Exactly. And the idea of devouring much flesh in a modern context could be seen in governments that really prioritize expanding their influence, maybe not through direct territorial conquest, but by exerting that strong control over resources and populations within their sphere of influence.
So the modern bears in this interpretation might not be physically invading countries, but they're exerting their dominance through other means.
Exactly. This analysis proposes that nations today might display the characteristics of this second kingdom by exercising dominion through things like economic leverage, political maneuvering, military strength.
So things like indirect conflicts, economic sanctions, strategic alliances, those could be modern equivalents of the bear's raw power. It's really interesting how this video connects these ancient empires, not just to past events, but to these enduring patterns of governance and the exercise of influence.
Yeah.
And they even link this bear imagery to that composite beast described in Revelation 13, which has elements of the lion, the bear, and the leopard.
Yes, suggesting that the characteristics of these empires contribute to that final end times structure.
Okay, so the idea is that these aren't just isolated historical events, they're all part of a bigger prophetic picture.
Exactly. The characteristics of these successive empires are viewed as building blocks, each one contributing to the nature of that final system that emerges in the end times.
Wow.
So the spirit of this second kingdom, with its focus on power control and strategic expansion, is seen as continuing to shape world events.
And this analysis even brings in Jesus' warnings in Matthew 24 about all those conflicts between nations.
It does, suggesting that these cycles of power struggles and conquest might actually persist as prophecy unfolds.
Okay, so we've covered the lion Babylon and the bear Medo-Persia. Next up is the leopard with 4 heads and 4 wings. And this one sounds even more unusual.
It does. It's described as having 4 heads and 4 wings, symbolizing swift and strategic rule, quite a contrast to the bear's brute force approach.
Yeah, it seems like a very different type of power.
It does, and historically this beast is strongly associated with the Greek Empire under Alexander the Great.
Alexander the Great, known for those incredibly rapid and extensive military campaigns.
Exactly. He built a huge empire in an incredibly short amount of time.
Now, those 4 heads and 4 wings, those are very specific details. What significance does this video analysis give to them?
The four wings are generally understood to emphasize the speed of Alexander's conquest.